Serious, Redditors who have a stepfather mother younger than them, what's your story? I found out my dad died because he stroked out while in a motel with someone younger than me. This was, to our knowledge, the third time he cheated in a long-term relationship. And he was already married to someone 20 years younger than him. None of this really affected me because I knew he was a piece of for years, so I guess it's not really a great answer to this thread, but it's still kind of amazing. The story is simply that my father is an irresponsible creep. It was just the two of us when I was growing up. But he made it clear he was resentful having to take care of me. He's in his 60s. I'm 34. My older half-sister turns 40 in a few days. My youngest half-brother just turned 2. I'm sure I have siblings I don't even know about. His current wife is maybe 30 and by far the oldest woman he's ever been with. He cheated on his last wife with her. His last wife was 19 when they met. I was 17. But that was better than his previous girlfriend before that, who was a few months younger than me. And I was 17. I always make sure that his baby mamas know that I'll always be there for them and their kids when he leaves. Because he is going to leave. It's interesting watching how surprised they are when he does. My dad is 71. 6 months ago he left my mom for a 25-year-old. I'm 33 and my sister is 28. His new girlfriend is 6 months pregnant. They're not married because my parents' divorce hasn't gone through yet. But I guess once that happens I'll have a stepmom who is 8 years younger than me and a newborn half-sister. This will be my dad's third marriage. The first one ended because he slept with his brother's wife. So the story here is, my dad is trashy. Edit. Whoa. Well, this certainly got more attention than I expected. Thanks for the internet points, y'all. Also, yes, half-sister, not stepsister. I wasn't finished with my coffee yet when I posted. Close bracket. Edit 2. Again. Yes. Half-sister not stepsister. The ancestorologists of Reddit have really showed up in force. I'm editing this mistake out. Maybe that will slow the tide of half-sister not stepsister comments. Edit 3. Fwee, I'm female. So theoretically I'd be my own grandma. If this redneck family tree actually closed full circle. My mother's husband is 2 years younger than my husband. My husband is 7 years older than me. So my mom's guy isn't younger than me, but it still is a weird dynamic. My mom jokes that I always dated older and she always dated younger, so it was bound to happen. We actually made a pact when I was 20 that I wouldn't date anyone older than her, and she promised she wouldn't date anyone younger than me. We both had some close calls but held true to the pact. The only really weird thing is watching our husbands interact. They are serious best friends whenever there is a family get together. If we can't find one, we look for the other. There isn't a cookout or birthday party where they decide to give each other piggyback rides or cake eating contest or something silly and fun. My favorite thing is when my husband yells, "You aren't my real dad. You can't tell me what to do." Full stop. They are goofballs. Okay. So my dad loves controlling people. He was really abusive to me growing up. I'm sure if you need any stories, just dig through my history. He used to always go on about wanting a Chinese wife because she'd be really grateful and meek enough towards him that he wouldn't get any arguments or independent thought from her, unlike an American English wife. Well, not long after declaring the above, he met and married a 21-year-old Chinese woman. He's late 50s. I was 23 at the time. The way he treats her in public is revolting. He is so condescending and talks real slow and firm like someone would to a toddler. He tells her off and calls her names. It was so sad to see. I don't know for sure, but she may have left him, as when I was last in contact with him, he never brought her with him or spoke about her. I sure hope she left him. That stereotype is disgusting. So my Bill is 30. And his wife is 55. She has 7 children from 4 previous marriages relationships. 3 of her 7 are over 30 years old. The look on their faces when they came my bill at the wedding was something to behold. Her youngest is 10 and lives with his father. The other 6 are 18 plus and live on their own. At least 2 are also married. For about a year when I was 18 and my sister was 20, my 50-year-old uncle started dating a 19-year-old. I will never forget when she was driving me and my cousins to a concert and she treated all of us, including me, like children. I at one point had to say, "I've dated women older than you. Please stop referring to me as a child." Dad is a serial monogamer. He has been married 4 times. This last wife is 5 years younger than me. She is 25. My dad is 52. She gave birth to my brother last year, which resulted in an interesting conversation with my kids. Me showing my 6 and 5 years olds a picture of their new uncle. Me: "Look guys, this is your new uncle, isn't he cute?" Kids: "That's not an uncle, that's a baby." Caps are accurate. SMH: "She is young as hell and acts like it, and my dad is hella gross for dating a girl younger than his daughter. But it's his life. It makes for weird genealogy talks with others, but that's all." After my mom and her 2 sisters had graduated from high school, my grandparents got divorced. A few years later, my grandpa married one of my aunt's friends from high school. According to my mom, it was a real big deal that had a lot of people talking and head off. My aunts all hated her instantly. And one of them even did the "I'll put sugar in the gas tank" thing. Oddly enough as it may seem, my grandpa is still married to her. And my step-grandma is a pretty cool person. Everyone seems to get along now. Unfortunately, my grandpa has dementia pretty bad right now. And my step-grandma is pretty diligent about caring for him, so I have a lot of respect for her. My grandpa doesn't even know who she is anymore. It's been an interesting story, I suppose. Edit. My step-grandmother is a 50-year-old biker chick. Covered in tattoos. 7 years younger than my mother. My grandmother committed suicide in 2009. Leaving my socially inept and cantankerous grandfather behind. He moved to a retirement community, where he's gotten in some trouble for shooting a fawn from his front porch with a shotgun. A few years after my grandmother's death, he started proposing marriage to his housekeeper. He didn't want her to live with him. Just wanted to pass on his pension from working in the police department. Only a spouse could inherit it, not children. It took her many years, but eventually she accepted. No wedding. They're not really together. But now my step-grandmother's younger than my mother. I'm 27 and my stepmom is 26. My dad, 54, brought her over from the Philippines and they've been married for almost 2 years now. It was definitely different at first. Though I didn't have much room to talk, considering I've known a couple older gentlemen in a very biblical sense. I was most worried about my dad getting hurt or taken advantage of. They just didn't seem to have much in common other than they both like to watch 90 Day Fiancé registered sign. Now that the newness has worn off, I can see my dad was very lonely and needed companionship. My auntie Mama is a lovely young woman who grew up on a poor island with about 15 families on it. She laughs when people call it paradise because she says it's very hot and there is nothing to do. Electricity there is only from 5 PM to 10 PM. So I see their marriage as more of an arrangement to better both their situations. They may not be madly in love, but I can tell they care for each other. And now that it's been about 2 years, I can say with confidence I get along better with her than my old man. My dad is married to a 25-year-old waitress. I am 26. When I was 18/19, me and my family used to go to the place she waited at, and every time I would silently pray we were going to seated in her section, because I had a huge crush. My dad would always be a dad and drop some dad jokes. Waitress style. I always thought she was laughing at these jokes to be polite. Turns out she thought they were genuinely funny. They got together 5 years ago. He still goes to the same place to eat. And she's still his waitress. The jokes are worse now though. Edit. Yes, my mom was a part of the family that went. My parents' marriage was already falling to pieces. They split soon after I turned 18. But tried a few times to work things out. My dad, my mom and my, now, stepmom all worked at Pizza Hut together. My stepmom also lived across the street from us. I was 8. My mom and dad split up. My dad slept with my stepmom. Knocked her up. Got back with my mom 6 months later and knocked her up. Then went back to my stepmom. This is why I have a half sister who is 6 months older than my full brother. Kind of related. My younger sister had a concert date set up with a guy, but he called and said last second that he set up other plans. It's a small town and his dad just happened to be at the same bar as my sister and she invited his dad instead. It's been almost 2 years and they have a baby together now. So he flaked on her. And she made him her stepson. How about similar age? Dad married a woman 30 years younger than him. She was barely 2 years older than my big sister. He had younger girlfriends ever since his divorce. So I never really thought it out of the ordinary. She had met him about 7 years previously when he visited her country. When they met up again, she was recently widowed from another American. When dad married her, immigration was all over them. Dad was suspiciously mute about the entire situation. I suspect she married the other guy to get citizen status and then he up and died on her, leaving her status precarious. Took $1,000 in lawyer fees to get them to leave them alone. We really did not think the marriage would last. It has been 25 years. He is 86 while she is 55. He is frail. With asthma, diabetes, COPD and a heart condition. She is resentful, catty and works all the time. You know that saying, you made your bed, now lie in it? I know a family that adopted a girl, aged in between the two biological boys. When the adopted girl turned 18ish, the father ended up together with the adopted girl. I have never got a chance to talk to the older biological boy. When this all happened, high school was over and everyone moved on. You know Woody Allen? I had a stepmom 6 months older than me when I was 25-26. When coordinating my little brother's HS graduation party, she acted like she could boss me around. I have a friend who is barely 20 and dating a 46-year-old man. He has 2 sons, aged 20 and 23. They didn't take the news of him dating a girl younger than them well, and have apparently cut off complete contact with him. Now things have gotten serious. His ex-wife thinks it's hilarious. They all think he's having a midlife crisis and think she's a gold digger. I kinda have to agree with them. I'm 34 and my 53-year-old mom married a guy she met in my younger sister's friend group who is around 4 years younger than me, roughly 20-year age gap. My sister was really ed about it for a while, but I never really cared. It's my mom's 4th marriage and she has had a very long struggle with mental health issues and I just want her to be happy. The guy is really nerdy and they had a video game themed wedding at the local Elks Lodge. Now they live in an RV with 2 cats on just his income because she has been unable to get a job since 2009. I worry about my mom, but for now it seems to be working okay. I'm 33. I have 3 younger brothers. 31, 25, and 22. My dad is 61. And he's been seeing a 23-year-old girl for 8 or 9 months now. She lives with him and everything. We live in a smallish town. Close to 9,000 people. For a while it was the talk of the town. I hated it. Still do. But it's gotten better. I lost a lot of respect for my dad because of it, and it's said with the family just because it's so freaking awkward. My brothers and I catch a lot of flack for it. Hey, how's it feel having a stepmom younger than you? Stuff like that. It sucks because I've always liked doing stuff with my dad. Like hiking, hunting, fishing, etc. But now it's so weird to be around. Anyways. TLDR. Dad's 61. Dating a 23-year-old. Fun story time. My cousin and her mom hated each other for the longest time. The daughter was dating a dude for a while and he cheated on her after the mom seduced him. He ended up marrying the mom. The daughter decided to seduce him and they had an affair that ended with her getting pregnant with her son half-step brother. So, my cousin's stepdad is the father of her child. His child is also his step-grandchild. The child's grandmother is also his stepmom. When I was 14, my dad married a 21-year-old. She was fun, beautiful, caring, and I was blessed to have her. Please remember, people are people, and when it works, it works. My wife doesn't talk to her father anymore. Not because of this, but it is a sign of who he has become. Maybe who he always was. We lived in the UK whilst Mill and Phil were in the US. Whilst she was visiting us, she discovered his secret bank account. He told her he was leaving, moved to the Philippines, and married an 18-year-old. 6 years later, and two 18-year-old Filipino brides later, he is divorced again and looking for another. He is convinced children and his second wife, my wife's mother, stole the best years of his life, and that my wife betrayed him by moving to the UK and coming out as gay. He is also convinced he has something that makes him irresistible to Southeast Asian women. In high school, my brother had a crush on this girl, so we'd go to her house and hang out with her, a little brother, and her single mom. I ended up having a crush on her mom. So much so it was even a joke that we were the mom and dad of the family. Fast forward almost 10 years later. Me and the mom are married, and I'm a stepdad to two kids who are no more than 5 years younger than me. My dad married someone who is not much older than me. She is younger than my brother. When they got married, she was 30. My brother was 32. My parents were married for 30 years. But no one was happier than my brother and I when they got divorced. I didn't care about the age difference. My dad seemed to be happy. I didn't really like her as a person. She's selfish, demanding, and generally just a whiner. One time she was visiting my husband, son, and she locked herself in the guest room because she thought I hated her for trying to replace my mom. My mom's still around. Bitch. I just don't like you. I tried harder to be nice to her after that, even if I didn't want to. These days, they are separated, about to be divorced. My dad is in his 70s now. She's in her late 40s. I used to work with a guy, Chris, whose best friend, David, was also his stepdad. Basically, when they were in school, David used to go to Chris' house a lot and hang out. And somewhere along the line, David started going over just to see Chris' mum. Eventually, they started actually seeing each other, and eventually got married. I think David was like a year or two younger than Chris. What's strange to me is that Chris never moved out. He just kept living there with his best friend and mum. I never noticed any signs that they found it weird at all. They still came to work together and hung out like friends. It was a weird setup. My grandmother remarried when I was 12. She was 60 something at the time. Her new husband was 18. Many video games were played. I was in a tricky situation being in the foster care system. I ended up being adopted by a woman when I was 15. She was 21. We ended up disowning and then getting married when I turned 18. We were together for 10 years. And I finally found out who my real dad was. We met him, and despite the age difference, he was about 20 years older. They ended up hooking up and causing our divorce. Now they are together and readopted me. And both call me son. I was in a tricky situation being in the foster care system. I ended up being adopted by a woman when I was 15. She was 21. We ended up disowning and then getting married when I turned 18. We were together for 10 years. And I finally found out who my real dad was. We met him, and despite the age difference, he was about 20 years older. They ended up hooking up and causing our divorce. Now they are together and readopted me. And both call me son. I'm responding and quoting in case you delete that because I need that story for later. My drug-addicted, supremely self-conscious father is engaged to an old co-worker of mine who I used to casually hook up with. I'm 27. As is she. He is 47. I'm almost positive he knew I had hooked up with her several times in the past. It never bothered me when I found out. For some reason it seemed to really bother him. Though. He got reminded of it, I guess, not sure how he cold forgot, jokingly by some of her friends, also old co-workers, and went ape. Don't do drugs. Guys. My best friend was actually married to a man in his late 40s. She's in her early 30s. And his 2 sons are also in their early 30s. He had them pretty young. Her husband was in prison from a mistake a few years ago and he ended up being diagnosed with cancer. The prison was pretty negligent when it came to actually getting him proper treatment and he ended up dying about 2 months before he was due to be released. So my friend is now a widow at 31. Her stepkids are both in prison as well and they keep asking her for stuff. I'm trying to get it through to her that she doesn't owe them anything. They're older than she is and can deal with their own decisions. My dad married a woman 7 years younger than I am. They have a 35 plus age difference. Their daughter is now 2 years older than my son. They live in the country where I was born and I've only met her 2x. But my sister and I support them financially. He abandoned us when my sister and I were 10 and 12. And had another set of children with another woman then. I am very wistful when I see dads being good to their daughters. My mom is amazing though. And my son and I are super close. So all things considered I'm still better off than most. I'm sorry but why in the hell do you support them financially? I'm the stepmom in this scenario. My husband is 15 years older than me. And has a previous marriage. In said previous marriage. He adopted the ex-wife's 2 children. Who are now adults. One is 23. The other is 26. I'm 33. I entered this marriage in agreement of being child-free for life. I don't want kids. But love everyone else's. Luckily. My hubby is also part of the club. And wants no additional kiddos. My relationship with the stepkids is more along the lines of friends. They have a wonderful relationship with their dad, my husband. And I'm not as close as they are. Understandably. However. I think they do come to me as with issues and help like any other parent-child relationship. I am the person you go to when you have financial problems. And need food, household stuff like TP. I have all of that in my stock room. I help whenever they ask. My requirement is to simply ask. And I will help however I can. My brother-in-law's stepdad is only a couple of years older than him. His stepdad had a daughter with his mom who is now around 5 I think. So my sister has a half-sister-in-law who she's 20 plus years older than. Edit. Wrong relation. That's confusing. For someone that isn't an English native lol. Since just about everyone else is going with the whole not younger but I'm gonna start with my story is somewhat related. My folks have been together for 31 years now. However it's I who dates someone their age. I got no siblings. The guy I date has no kids. Nieces or nephews. His brother is married and older than my folks. So there's a bit of an age difference between us. My folks were probably ready for it so they didn't care. One day I told them I was gay. Another day I told them I'm into older guys. Then one day I was dating an older guy. Before that I lived with some old guy and his son. Friend from college and I wanted to move out of the house. So I moved in with him. So it was probably good practice for my folks. I'm in a significantly healthier relationship than that friendship ever was. We're good together. My parents like him. We live together now. We go out all over the place on the weekends. It's just been awesome. Not much to say unless anyone wants to ask. My mother is 58. And the youngest of 3. Her father is 87. His girlfriend who lives with him is 27. So not only is she younger than his kids, she's younger than all of his grandkids. It's truly disgusting. Apparently, she's not after his money, which is substantial. But he saved her from a life of crime and meth. Okay. Whatever you say. My grandfather, John, left my grandmother, Lucy, and they both were 50 years old. For Cassandra, an 18-year-old woman he'd met sailing. They were upper middle class. Lucy had never had a job. Their children, my dad and aunt, were legal adults, 1 and 4 years older than Cassandra. And back then alimony was not a thing. Not as much. Lucy had to go live in another European country to find a job and not starve. John and Cassandra got married. 20 years later Cassandra left him for another guy named John as well, who just happened to John's nephew and hers by marriage. Obviously, he was her age. After 6 or 10 months she realized she didn't like him all that much and went back to the original John. They were still together when he died at 85. We didn't like her.